a gap year around the world, okay, where actually you don't do anything. What a fiasco. What you should be doing right from the start, from the time you reach working age, okay, is to get into the jobs market. You should get into a very competitive situation as early as you can in life, because then that will teach you that you have to compete to get anywhere in this world. Life doesn't come to you, you have to go to life, okay? When you get up in the mornings, remember, you take on the day. Because if you don't take on the day will take you on. And what I'm concerned about is that we're not equipping our young people to actually have those qualities to make them the sort of individual responsible for their own well-being to go forward in life, okay? I've said that for a long, long time now, and I will keep telling you that. Also on the show today, we're going to be talking about asylum seekers. That is going to be a huge problem again, you know, just because the weather's got a bit choppy and the English Channel is now, you know, got 6-foot waves and all that. The problem hasn't gone away. It'll never go away. As soon as the good weather comes again, we will have the same issue that we have to confront. And remember, most of it is down to organised crime, the crime being people smuggling, and a civilised country like ours must have a way of turning that around. I've got a few ideas, and a few people are going to come and talk to me who've got even better ideas, okay? We're going over to the US because, of course, the situation regarding President Donald Trump is critical. I'm not suggesting his health is necessarily critical, but for the US president to have to be confined to isolation at a time like this, less than a calendar month away from the next election, is, well, it's critical, because we don't even know if the election, in the form that we've seen it happen for the previous 200 years, can take place. We just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen, do we? So we've got experts on from America tell us all about that. The Tory party conference started today, although you wouldn't know it because, of course, party conferences that start when they are merely on screen and not in halls full of baying supporters and baying opponents aren't really party conferences, are they? But we're going to get to that later in the show. Pubs are still struggling. Of course they're struggling when we've got this ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous, 10 p.m. embargo on town centres. Some town centres now actually facing complete lockdown, which I think, as I have told you previously, a massive overreaction, okay? We're also going to be talking about serious issues which we should be addressing in this country. Homelessness. It's a huge problem in this country. I bet you just step over somebody who's homeless, don't you? When you're walking down a pavement, see some poor person sitting there with a little paper cup and all that, you turn away and you don't want to know. Well, that's not the way it should be done. We'll be getting into that as well. And people getting trampled by cows. Now, you probably think there's something amusing about that, but I can tell you something. You wouldn't be very amused if a cow started walking all over you. Apparently, the incident of cow trampling is increasing. We've got to get to the bottom of it. The fact that actually down in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, I sometimes walk across a golf course and then through a field of cows is not the only reason why I think this is a serious issue which we have got to address, okay? But anyway, listen, folks, first of all, what we'll do is we'll talk about the student situation, right? We'll talk about that because I feel very strongly about it and we are in crisis. Now, what have we got now? We've got students all over the country being, to all intents and purposes, locked up. Okay, it might only be for 2 weeks, it might be longer. We've got universities which are being locked down at the same time, so the students can't get out of the campus, okay? We've heard just today, within the last few hours, 770 students positive at Northumbria University. How could that happen? 770 students. Northumbria University, by the way, might be better known to most of you, it certainly was to me, as Newcastle Polytechnic, right? And the reason I point that out is because this is one of the problems we have in this country. There are too many universities. Newcastle Polytechnic was a great institution and people used to do courses there which were much more practical than the sort of courses, you know, law, medicine, geography, history, English, you've got at universities. All those polytechnics have gone. I once went to a polytechnic. It was called Trent Polytechnic. It is now the University of the Trent. And so I tell people that my alma mater, or alma mater, I don't know how to pronounce that, was in fact the University of the Trent. And nobody can deny that because that's what it is now. But a few years before it was Trent Polytechnic, it was a technical college in the middle of Nottingham. Take Bournemouth University, right? Bournemouth University. I have family down in Bournemouth. I go there all the time. Every time I drive down to Bournemouth, you'll find another hangar-sized building being attached on to the already large and expanding university campus. Bournemouth University used to be a technical college. Then it became a polytechnic. Now it's a massive sprawling university. I think it's got the biggest media facility in the country. And let me tell you this, anybody who comes to me with a degree from a media facility on a bit of paper, who hasn't done any work in a newsroom or a TV station or radio station, they've got no chance. I much prefer the person who goes out of school at 18 and goes straight to the local radio station, straight to the local TV station, straight to the local newspaper, as I did, okay? Walked into the local newspaper, knocked on the door, like that, okay? Who's calling? Mike Parry, give me a job. Eventually got one. Keep knocking, you'll eventually get a job. And that's how my career started. That, folks, is why I'm sitting here in this studio today, okay, informing you. It would never have happened if I'd have decided to stay on at the University of the Trent. I gave the place up and got a proper job, okay? Now we've got lockdowns in Manchester, Edinburgh, Dundee. Those who have been able to go home have gone home. Those who can't are effectively locked up. It is an absolute fiasco, and we've got to do something about it. And do you know what my suggestion is? And I'm going to give you the number now, because I think some of you, particularly those who've got youngsters, children, teenagers at the higher education establishments, are going to get quite unhappy about this. Okay, so the number is 0344 491000, okay? You can text TALK, T-A-L-K, plus your message to 87222. The cost of the call is 25p plus the standard network rate. You can tweet at Talk Radio. You can tweet me, Mike Parry, at Mike Parry8. I'll take your personal tweet. Don't worry about that. Read them all out on the air, okay? And we're streaming live, by the way. And for those who are already on YouTube, you will be looking at me directly now. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Just search for Talk Radio, okay? So my proposal is this, and I want you to give me a call because I want to know if I'm alone in thinking this or whether I have the nation's support. My proposal is that we massively pare down higher education in this story, okay? Because I follow a certain football club, who incidentally won 4-2 today, thank you, Everton. It means that I've travelled around the country and gone to lots of big cities in pursuit of my club. Now, I've noticed in cities like Southampton, I've already mentioned Bournemouth, Liverpool, Manchester, every time I go, a new building turns up. And you know, that building is usually student accommodation. Fantastic, huge blocks of student accommodation built by the private sector, but then financed ultimately by the government, because the interest has to be paid back on these buildings that are going up all over the place. And I can't understand why we're expanding universities all the time when it's obvious that people are coming out of them overqualified for the sort of jobs we need in this country. And let me tell you this now. The reason why it's massively important now is because with the downturn in the economy, because of COVID, there ain't going to be the jobs there when these children, as they are children, I'm not being rude to them, teenagers, adolescents, call them what you want, if they stick at it and do their 3-year course, what do you think the state of the country is going to be like in 3 years' time when they want to come out and get a job? There won't be any jobs. They're talking about unemployment reaching 4 million. 4 million, right? Okay. Where is somebody who spent the last 3 years reading books, studying something which is fairly useless, like, for instance, the history of art? Where is a person like that, a young person like that, aged 21, going to get themselves a job? They're not. So do you know what I think they should do? I think half of them should pull out now. I think we should close down half our universities and we should turn all those student blocks into something else. Maybe houses for the homeless, which we're going to get onto later in the show. Or maybe redesignate the buildings, turn them into hotels or something like that. But I don't understand why we keep expanding the student sector in this country. I blame Tony Blair. I think he started it. Education, education, education. Why was there a need to massively increase the percentage of young people from 16 to 18 who go to university and then deprive the country of skills we really need? You won't believe this, but even in the current situation, when people being poured onto the dole queue because of COVID and the lockdown, my mate, who runs a scaffolding and brick pointing business, is still having to go to Czechoslovakia, right, to recruit bricklayers and lorry drivers. And that's because we don't teach people in this country the basic skills of the basic jobs that we need, okay? I think a very noble art in this country, bus drivers, okay? Bus drivers, they're great people. They have a tough job. They have to keep a busload of people very happy all the time, all right? And what do you see on the back of every bus in this country? On the back of every bus in this country, you see an advert which says, bus drivers wanted, apply at this number. I mean, we haven't got enough bus drivers, but we've got a surfeit, and I mean a surfeit, of students coming out of university with degrees which do not equip them in any way for their life ahead. I think it's a scandal. I want to halve the higher education sector. I want to halve the number of youngsters going to university because it's a racket. I think it's a racket. Some of these vice-chancellors of some of these universities actually are paid about £400,000 a year. Between 365 and 535, I looked up just before the show, for a vice-chancellor to run a university. I could run a university. It's not difficult. Why do they get paid that sort of money? I think it's a racket. So, folks, I'm going to give you a number, and I want you to call me, please, if you feel like I do. You may not feel like I do. You may feel that I've got the wrong end of the stick. You may be able to come onto the phone lines and educate me and tell me what's really going on in higher education and how I've missed the point. I'd love to hear from you, OK? I'll remind you of the number. The number is 0344 499 1000. You are listening to me, Mike Parry, Talk Radio, and I want you to give me a call.
Talk Radio.
Sustainably sourced Arabica beans, freshly ground to order, and organic milk, all for just 99p. Because quality coffee shouldn't cost a fortune. A freshly ground McCafe white coffee, now just 99p. Unbelievable. Price and participation may vary. Delivery orders not included. Discount follows government's VAT reduction.
Ah, the open road. My bit of me time. It's why I use BP Me Rewards. Because who gets to choose the rewards that are right for me? Me, that's who. I can spend my points with terrific partners like Amazon, spend them on fuel, or donate my rewards to good causes. You can pick up the card at checkout or via the app. I love a bit of me time.
BP Me Rewards. Little rewards, more often. Download BP Me Rewards in the App Store to find out more. Visit bpmerewards.co.uk for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
At Wix, Dulux Standard 2.5 litre coloured emulsion is now £12. Perfect for turning your home from shabby to chic. Cure your house embarrassment with Wix.
Jay should be out here right now, listening to Mother Nature. Instead, he's at home, waiting for someone to fix his Wi-Fi, listening to his vacuum cleaner. Why, Jay? Why search for the greatest nature trails but not the right broadband provider? Well, search no more, my friend. Only BT has home tech experts you can book in 2-hour time slots, 7 days a week. Why choose anyone else? BT. Beyond limits.
Book in-home Wi-Fi repair appointments in 2-hour slots. Terms apply.
This is the sound of an assault course completer, archery acer, and high rope hero. And this is someone who did it by collecting 9 codes inside the sun for 2 free tickets to the Bear Grylls adventure, worth up to £80. Sounds good, right? Pick up the sun today. T's and C's apply.
Talk Radio. Traffic and travel.
The M6 in Staffordshire both ways, all traffic is being temporarily held and it's stationary down to an accident away from junction 15 heading up towards Crewe at junction 16. The M1 in Northamptonshire, 2 lanes closed there, that's heavy down to an accident away from junction 15 up towards the Newport Pagnell services. M3 in Surrey northbound has a lane closed, that's slowed down to a broken down vehicle away from junction 3 for Bagshot towards junction 2. That's the latest.
Mike Porky Parry on Talk Radio.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. And how can I ever change things that I feel?
Okay, folks, you are listening to Talk Radio. You're probably wondering why we're playing this record now. I'm going to tell you when we get to the chorus. Because when we get to the chorus, I'm going to join in. Unfortunately, the chorus are the only words I know. But here it comes.
You can go your own way.
You can go your own way. Okay, folks, sorry that was a bit strangulated, but it hit a chord which is slightly higher than mine, you know. But all my production staff in the old control room here, they're all dancing up and down. That's because Lindsay Buckingham, who is still a legendary member of Fleetwood Mac, who were at one time were the biggest band in the world, is 71 today. And Lindsay Buckingham was part of the group that made Rumours one of the biggest selling LPs of all time. And I think it was after Rumours it all went downhill a bit because they made one called Tusk, which was a double album, and it didn't seem to go as well. Lindsay Buckingham apparently had an awful lot to do with that, but I'm not blaming the boy. He's a genius. Right, okay, you listen to Talk Radio. I'm Mike Parry. We're talking students. We're talking about academia, I should say. We're talking about higher education in this country. I've made my position clear. I think it's too big an industry. I don't think it's delivering what students need. I want you to give me a call, please. 0344 499 1000. Do you agree with me that higher education's out of control and it snares too many youngsters who should be given the alternative of other options? I want to hear from you, and already you're calling in, and I'm delighted to hear from you. One of the callers is a bus driver. I pointed out what a noble art, I think, a noble profession bus driving is. We'll get round to talking to you in a minute, but for now, I want to invite onto the show Vicky Blake, who is president of the University and College Union. That's for teachers and lecturers, and she's with me right now. Vicky, thank you very much indeed for joining me. You'll have heard me outline my view on higher education, how I think there are so many things wrong with it. How would you like to respond to my accusation that it's too big an industry now and it's not delivering?
I think it's interesting to hear your views. I think the problem we've got at the moment is that the answer to the crisis we've got with coronavirus and education is not actually to close half of universities or close down post-92 universities. It's to move the teaching online until it's safe to go back. But I think you're getting at an issue which is around how education has been marketised. You were talking about VC salaries, you were talking about bus drivers, and I think the important thing here is everybody deserves to get an education, don't they? I mean, you shouldn't have to be.
That's exactly what I want people to do, but I want them to get the right education.
But what do you mean by the right education? Are you saying that a bus driver shouldn't be able to go and study what they want at university, or that people should only study certain things if they come from certain backgrounds? Because I actually work in widening participation. So my job is to help students get to where they want to go and find the right sort of course that fits them, regardless of whatever background they come from.
Okay.
So...
Okay. Now, in the first place, Vicky, do you think there'll be enough jobs around in 3 years' time when the current batch of students come out, 3 or 4 years' time, but mostly 3 years' time, when we're obviously sinking into a recession, which is going to be a long-standing recession because of COVID? What's the point of keeping youngsters at university for the next 3 years on a promise they'll have a better future when they won't? They'll have a worse future. The best thing to do, in my view now, is to get into the jobs market now while you can.
I think this recovery that we need to see will be driven by universities and by the education sector. By making sure
they don't create wealth. They don't create wealth. Universities do not create wealth. They drain money out of the system.
I really just do not agree with how you're putting that across at all. You'll be unsurprised to learn. And universities are centres of innovation and research as well. You know, this is something that drives progress in industry, will create more jobs in all types of sectors. We have a really big creative industry in this country, which is struggling a lot at the moment because the government has not invested enough in supporting people who are not currently able to work because of the restrictions we have under coronavirus. But without a university sector that is also working really hard with other sectors, working hard with the further education sector and with schools and working together across education. We need a much more comprehensive education system. I mean that in every sense of the word. Without that vision, we're going to see very, very narrow opportunities for people who come from backgrounds other than the Eatons and the Harrows and the Harrogate ladies and all those kinds of very posh schools. And I think it's the job of universities to help provide a huge breadth and depth of knowledge. You can go and study all sorts of different courses.
But that's what I'm saying they don't do.
Universities right now, but they do.
But
there are all
Vicky,
kinds
they don't.
of universities with that. How are you arriving at that conclusion?
Could you name me, and you probably can't off the top of your head, and this is not a trick question, how many bricklaying courses are there at British universities? How many lorry driving courses are there? How many plumbing courses are there? How many electricians courses are there at our universities today? Because they used to be provided by what we call technical colleges and polytechnics.
I'm going to flip the question on you. So how much higher education is actually provided in further education colleges, where you'll find a lot of those courses that you're talking about? Higher education is actually provided in a much more diverse way than I think we're used to thinking about. It takes place through further education colleges in partnerships with universities as well. So actually universities and colleges and schools, as I said, we really need to see a vision of education where that's pushed even further, where they're all working together. And I have to say, why should someone who is a brickie not want to also study something else, and why should they not have the opportunity to do that?
Because they're good at laying bricks.
Narrowing people down.
Because they're good at laying bricks. And when you start laying bricks, you start building things. You start building things, you start becoming a house developer. And I know people who've done that. You know, people have started as bricklayers and they've started converting houses, and the opportunities aren't there if they've just got to do it themselves, and the system is not helping them. Now, you mentioned about the elitist schools, OK? I know exactly where you're coming from. Half the cabinet went to Eton and Oxford and that kind of stuff. But I think it's the very youngsters who need the help to get onto the vocational courses who are losing out to the snobs and the knobs and whatever we want to call them, who come from the best schools, because we still haven't balanced up in universities the equation between kids from state schools and those from private and independent schools.
I mean, I think you've missed that there are entirely new ways to study for degrees now. You can do a degree apprenticeship. You can study in a manner that suits you.
And where do you do these? Where do you do these degrees?
These are being developed at universities across the country. I work, when I'm not being president of UCU, I work at the University of Leeds, and they're investigating how to put, degree programs together that work through apprenticeships there. There are degree courses at Birmingham that do similar. That this is happening and increasingly kind of being put together. There are, as I was saying, diverse ways to study at university.
Yes.
What I think you brought me on to talk about, though, was the problems that we're having at the moment with the crisis among students and coronavirus education. And we're talking about the ones who are already there.
Yes.
I can talk to you at great length about the problems of in making sure that students who deserve to get to go to the right place for them to develop the skills that they've got and the potential they've got. I can talk to you about that for hours. That's my job.
I know you can, but that's not the issue. We all know that's happening. We've seen pictures of students in bedrooms with, help, I'm a prisoner and all that. But what I want to get to, Vicky, and you've helped me very much indeed, thank you very much indeed, is whether or not the whole education system is so bloated and so inappropriate now for its needs. But thank you very much indeed. That's Vicky Blake, the president of the University and College Union. She's the union rep for teachers and lecturers, and I appreciate her time. Lots of you calling in now. Lots of you are either agreeing or disagreeing with me, but it's a big issue, and it's one that we've unveiled here on Talk Radio this afternoon because not enough people are talking about it. Delighted to say we're going to talk to Mark, who is in Hull. Hi, Mark. Thanks for calling us up here at Talk Radio.
No problem, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Mark. What's your job in life, by the way?
HGV driver. I've just swapped to HGV driving. I was a bus driver for 7 years.
Right.
But yeah, as you say, it is a hard job. People sort of look down the nose at it, but it is a hard job.
Oh, it's a very hard job. Very hard job. You get an unruly bunch on your bus late at night, and you're not only a bus driver, you're almost like a policeman. You have to deal with things that other people don't deal with. But Mark, what's your view of what I call the bloated education system in this country?
Well, I think you're completely correct in saying that. I've worked in some quite high-end IT sales specialist jobs, and a lot of them was like, you've got to go to university to do this job, and he was like, I've never been to university, didn't get that many GCSEs, but I did a better job than 90% of the people I work with in the sales environment, and it was
Yes.
Oh, I've got a music degree, but what good has it done yet?
No, it's no good at all. I mean, getting an English degree at university is worthless, unless you want to be a teacher. You know what they say about teachers, and I've got nothing against teachers, but, if you can, you do. If you can't, you teach. It's a rather an unkind thing to say about teachers, but what they mean is that people just come out of university and just start teaching. Do you have children yourself, Mark?
I do, yes.
And how would you like to see their lives progress?
Well, there's a lady on TV, Steph McGovern, I think she's called.
Yes, Steph, yeah.
She's a big advocate of sort of technical colleges and vocational courses for kids, and I think that's the way to go. They're all too busy getting saddled. I mean, when you think about it, all these students, they all go to university, and the first thing they do is they're saddled with a big loan.
Yes.
To go and buy all the IT equipment that they're told that they need and all this stuff.
Yep.
And it's the Apples of the world and things like that. They all benefit from them buying the latest computers and this, that, and the other for the university courses. They drop out after 2 years.
Yes.
And then they sell it all on a second hand on eBay, stuff like that. And it's like, what was the point? Unless you want to be a doctor, dentist, or architect, something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you know what direction you're going in.
I agree. And also, Mark, and thanks very much for calling us. That was Mark calling in here to Talk Radio, a former bus driver, now a heavy goods driver, heavy goods vehicle driver, I should say. We've got a shortage of them in this country, by the way. Just two final points I would make is that, first of all, university courses are far too long. I don't know why they have to have 3 years. In the 1 year I did at the University of the Trent, I only went to sort of lessons or lectures or whatever it was, about 6 or 8 hours a week. I spent the rest of the time playing snooker and darts. I won the snooker competition and was runner-up in the darts competition. At that point, I decided not to go any further. But they're too long. 3 years can easily be measured down or tapered down to 2. And kids are coming out of university with huge debts. I mean, massive debts that they've taken out loans to get through the university, most of which, right, and you have to look at the figures to believe this, most of which hasn't been repaid and actually never will be. OK, you're listening to me, Mike Parry. We're on Talk Radio. I want you to join in the show. I'm with you till 7.
Across the UK, online, on DAB, and on your smart speaker. Late Night with Christo Fufas on Talk Radio.
Big topics, big opinions, big conversations, and a place to have your say. So phone Christo and let's put the world to rights.
Late Night with Christo Fufas. Weeknights from 10 on Talk Radio. Talk Radio.
Your trusted 24-hour resource for breaking news and non-stop conversation.
The incentive to the employer is not a particularly good one.
Unparalleled radio for unprecedented times.
It is not, unfortunately, unheard of for somebody to be in custody and to be found with a gun.
Online, on DAB, and on the Talk Radio app. Talk Radio. The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
I'm Howard Hughes. Join me this Sunday night from 10 for a trip into the outer limits.
The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. Sunday night from 10 on Talk Radio.
Like Porky Parry
on Talk Radio.
OK, folks, you're listening to Talk Radio. This is Mike Parry, broadcasting to you from Talk Radio Towers, OK? Had a very sparky debate there with Vicky Blake, President of the University and College Union. Thank you, Vicky, for coming on. Vicky said towards the end, I wanted to talk about students. We all want to talk about students. But the problem is the students have got a big problem at the moment because there's so many of them. And I don't know where their futures are going to go to unless we radically think about revising it. Now, another huge problem this country's got, and that's what we do here on Talk Radio, by the way. We get stuck into the problems that affect everybody's lives, which concern everybody, which are part of the national interest in that we have to solve them. And one of the other problems we've got, and it's gone a bit quiet because, of course, the seas are calmer than they were 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it might have gone quiet, but it is still there and still something that's got to be addressed, and that's the problem with asylum seekers, OK? Now, my view is that asylum seekers are desperate people. They come here and then we have to filter through them and see those who are entitled to stay, those who aren't. If they come here and they're entitled to stay and they want to make a life for themselves, and that's what a lot of them who take that perilous trip across the English Channel believe in, then you've got to give them a bit of tough love. I believe in helping people in life, but also believe in people helping themselves. And if you can do the both at the same time, and I'm suggesting, a system where you could give asylum seekers, if they're granted permission to stay here, a grant. And then instead of going into sort of a detention camp, we find some way of allowing these people to invest in their own future. Start new towns in the north of England, because we want to spread the population away from the southeast. We had to build new towns after the Second World War to cope with the baby boomer booming population, and we're going to need to do that again. If we need new towns and we want people to prosper in them, why not give the responsibility for building those towns to the very people who've come here to make a life in Britain, okay? Anyway, I'm delighted to say that to discuss that issue with me and how we handle the problem of asylum seekers, we've got the Conservative MP for South Thanet on the line, Mr. Craig Mackinlay. Craig, thank you very much, or if I can call you Craig, thanks very much indeed for joining me, and thank you very much indeed. And my first question to you is this. Priti Patel has put up some fairly revolutionary ideas over the last week or two, last 10 days. And, some issues have caused a lot of controversy about maybe taking asylum seekers and then finding places for them to go to start a new life, which don't include the United Kingdom. I'm talking about, places as far away as St Helena or remote Scottish islands. What do you think about that proposal?
Well, I mean, it's not a proposal. What's happened is the Home Secretary has gone to her officials and say, Australia came up with a scheme many years ago, 2012, when they were suffering huge numbers of people coming over by boat from Indonesia. They decided on the little island of Nauru to actually do their processing to cut whether people had a valid claim for asylum or not. So based on that success, I think she's asked her officials to go, is there any comparative we could possibly do in the UK so that we can process people perhaps not on shore? And, well, it comes down to we should be processing quickly. That's what we need. We need quick processing so people know whether they've got a claim or not living in limbo for very many years, multitudes of legal appeals, and, nobody knows where they are. That I think is unwholesome.
Yes, no, I totally agree. I read this morning, I checked the figures, Craig, only 1 in 700 asylum seekers who were not granted status here in the UK have actually been taken back to the continent, for part of the journey where they came from. I mean, we simply don't have a repatriation system that works, do we?
We don't seem to. No, we see there are very, very low numbers actually do get repatriated. And that's very true across the whole of Europe. And one of the reasons that we have a problem with those coming over on the back of a lorry or on small dinghies is that France is very similar.
Yes.
Their asylum system is not dissimilar to ours, all based on the conventions of the 1950s. So if they get refused asylum in France, they don't get deported either. They think, well, we'll have a go on getting to the UK. And that is very commonplace. I've been over to the jungle in Calais, spoke to very many of them. Most of them had actually been through an immigration system in France, had failed, not been repatriated, and they were trying their luck trying to get over to the UK. What we're seeing, Mike, is something very different now. Whereas years ago, the back of the lorry route was very popular. The government has spent £100 million of our money working with the French to fortify Calais. They were people who often had claimed asylum elsewhere and been refused. They were hoping to get into the UK, back of a lorry, jump off in Northampton or somewhere else, and disappear into the underground market to get cash jobs and all the rest of it. And no doubt many of them were facing what really could be called modern-day slavery. What we're seeing now with the dinghies, I find, are these people are not claiming asylum anywhere in Europe and trying to get to the UK to make it their first asylum claim. So it's quite different. What we're seeing is they're landing on the beach in St Margaret's Bay and elsewhere in Dover constituency and actually wanting to be found and wanting to make that claim. So quite different.
Oh, absolutely. And they want to be rescued from the middle of the English Channel when the French boats have nudged them just over the halfway line. What do you think about my idea, Craig? And it's a very serious proposition that if you make people self-sufficient, if you give them a grant, and if you say, look, you know, you're going to go there, we're going to start a new town in the north of England. Think of Jamestown, right? When America first started and people went there, you know, the pioneers went there and they built it themselves. Isn't there some value in saying, OK, you want to prove that you are a person of worth, that you have a desire to make yourself a life in Britain? Here's the wood, here's the nails, here's the concrete. Build it yourself. I mean, is that not an incentive for somebody to actually contribute to what we're going to offer them?
Well, that's certainly a revolutionary idea, Mike. I'm not entirely sure I go along with that one.
Right.
I mean, we have a serious issue of the 1951 Refugee Convention.
Yes.
Does it really apply to the modern world?
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, probably everybody left in Syria, 18.5 million of them, would probably have a claim in the UK should they be able to get here.
Yep.
There would be vast tracts of other parts of the world, even possibly Lebanon now, as almost failed state.
Okay.
People would have a claim under those conventions. Are they really applicable today when travelling is actually that much more easy today?
Yeah, OK. All right, just one last thought. Craig, thank you very much for being with me today. I read a piece just this week, and I'm sure you will have seen it yourself. Mr. Alexander Downer, former Australian Foreign Minister, he talked about the very system that you opened this conversation with, taking people out to Papua New Guinea. He says that actually solved their problem. And I'm saying to you, Craig, as an MP, I think it would be very well worthwhile talking to him and trying to get a system into this country where we find other places for asylum seekers to go. Craig, thanks very much indeed for joining me. OK, folks, got to move on in the show because it's moving very fast. It's very rapid because people want to get in onto the show and talk to me. Delighted to say that we've had a call from Ross in Shropshire, who is a university lecturer, and I'm sure that Ross in Shropshire will have a view on the views I've been expressing about what I call our bloated academic system. Ross, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening on Talk Radio.
Hi, mate. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
I take an opposite view to Vicky. I know of Vicky. She's entitled to her own opinion.
Right.
And my view is this. I do agree with you.
Yes.
The problem is this. Too many people are going to university to study the classic academic subjects with the hope of perhaps becoming a lawyer or an accountant. In 1981, when I went to university, something like 10% of school leavers went to university. Now it's 50%.
Right.
There are simply not the jobs, Mike.
No, that's what I mean. And there won't be in the future. With the turn down in the economy, it's going to be even less opportunities.
Yes, it's absolutely worse. They suffer a massive loss of expectations, and they end up with this debt, which is almost like having a mortgage without owning a house.
It is. I agree.
So wouldn't it be lovely if I have a dream. It's like Martin Luther King.
Right.
Imagine a university that is really multifaceted. So you could have art students studying alongside students who are studying garden design.
Yes.
Electronics. And they meet in the canteen, sit next to each other. They don't know each other. And they're all equal.
Yeah.
Because they're really just doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're just trying to get employment. And those people who should be studying those type of subjects no longer have to study law or accountancy or something like that, or English literature, because there are more jobs in some of the subjects you've been talking about.
I totally agree. Thank you very much indeed, Ross. That's Ross in Shropshire. I like to go north, to the border country between English and Wales. Another caller we've got here is from Hull, another fine city in this country. Get onto the M62 round about Manchester or Liverpool, drive across, and you'll end up in Hull on the other side of the country in Yorkshire. And Daniel is there now. Daniel, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Talk Radio. What would you like to put to me?
Good evening, Mike. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think the universities have been overblown or sort of oversubscribed since Tony Blair put his mantra forward of education.
Absolutely.
And from that point, it's just been a cash cow, and it's just been
absolutely.
It's just been used to in debt the students, because ever since that point they've had these massive millstones over their heads, and it sort of makes them dependent on the system as it currently stands.
Yes, it does.
And
do you know what? Dan? You've made the very point there about Tony Blair. I mentioned that earlier. But I honestly believe it was an attempt by a group of politicians to get young people off the dole queue because, unemployment amongst youngsters was rising. I don't know, stick them in universities. But the cost now is billions and billions of new buildings to house these students who are doing degrees that won't take them anywhere. Daniel, I want to thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight. OK, folks, we're getting calls from all over the country, and you too can contribute to tonight's show. OK, give me a call on 0344 499 1000. We can move on to callers who want to talk about the asylum seeker problem. OK, I think I've come up with a brilliant idea. I'm saying let asylum seekers become self-sufficient. Let's equip them with the means to build their own communities in this country, to come here and create wealth, because that's what you do when you build communities. OK, you may agree with me, you may not, but whatever you think, you should tell me. 0344 499 1000. Back with you very shortly.
Online, on DAB, and on the Talk Radio app. Talk Radio.
These days, everybody seems to be baking, so you give it a go. How hard can it be? Bit of kneading, bit of proving, and you bake a masterpiece. Now that feels like winning. So roll with it and turn today into Wednesday with a scratch card. Make today a Wednesday with a scratch card from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Search Dream Big, Play Small. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
This is the sound of an assault course completer, archery acer, and high rope hero. And this is someone who did it by collecting 9 codes inside the sun for 2 free tickets to the Bear Grylls adventure, worth up to £80. Sounds good, right? Pick up the Sun today. T's and C's apply.
UK employers. The way you hire from the EU is changing from the 1st of January 2021. To hire anyone new from outside the UK, you'll need to register as a licensed sponsor. Getting a license normally takes 8 weeks, and fees apply. New employees from outside the UK will also need to meet language, job and salary requirements. Find out everything you need to know about the UK's points-based immigration system at gov.uk/hiring from the EU.
It's everything. The roof over your head, the food on the table. If it doesn't work, you don't. If your van or pickup is your business, now's the time to invest in it. The Ford Upgrade and Save promotion. £1,000 upgrade saving, 0% APR representative finance, and 3 months deferred payment on Ford Acquire. It's 3 promotions in one. Ford Upgrade and Save for Business runs until the 31st of December. We're with you on this journey. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Search Backbone of Britain.
Model exclusions and deposit restrictions may apply. Free post for credit.
Talk Radio. Traffic and travel.
M25 in Kent has a lane closed slow down to a broken down vehicle. That's between Clackett Lane services heading up towards junction 5 of the M26 in the anti-clockwise direction. Into Staffordshire on the northbound stretch of the M6, 2 lanes are closed there. That's queuing also down to an accident between junction 15 for Stoke-on-Trent towards Crewe at junction 16. So travel time is around 30 minutes heading through that stretch this afternoon. That's the latest.
Across the UK, online, on DAB, and on your smart speaker. Drive with Dan Wootton on Talk Radio.
We'll have the breaking news of the day and the biggest newsmakers combined with feisty political debate and A-list guests.
Drive with Dan Wootton, Monday to Thursday afternoons from 4 on Talk Radio.
Like Porky Parry
on Talk Radio.
OK, folks, thank you very much indeed for tuning in to Talk Radio, which you are listening to now, obviously. I'm Mike Parry. I'm broadcasting to you from Talk Radio Towers. Thank you for all your contacts, messages and tweets and whatever. Read a few of those out in a minute. Also, a bit of aggression from some music fans saying that Fleetwood Mac were never the biggest band in the world. We played a Fleetwood Mac track. You can go your own way because Lindsey Buckingham, their legendary guitarist and songwriter, is 71 today. What a life that man has had, okay? Coming up very shortly, we're going to talk about homelessness in this country. It's a huge problem, and I don't think we spend nearly enough time focusing upon it. But I've got an expert on the line who we're going to talk to in just 1 second. Just a few messages here. Chris says, hi, Mike. Very interested to hear you talking to your guest, Vicky. I think she's trying to protect her own job. Why can't people learn, say, bricklaying and learn whatever at night school or online courses? I think students go to uni to get away from home. You don't repay the loan unless you earn wads. Well, Chris, I must defend Vicky. It was very good of her to come on the show. She's not defending her own job. She's in that profession. She has to speak up for it. She obviously believes in it, or else she wouldn't be working there. David says of Vicky Blake of UCU, bus drivers should be able to get degrees. Thing is, Vicky, he says, if they had degrees, their aim wouldn't be to drive buses, okay? So, look, keep those coming, folks. There's loads of them, but I want to get to my next guest because it's an issue which many more of us should take much more interest in. It's homelessness. We've got on the line Maeve McClenaghan, an investigative journalist at the Bureau Local, and she's written a book called No Fixed Abode, The Life and Death Among the UK's Forgotten Homeless. I think most homeless people in this country, in my view, are probably forgotten, but very interesting to see what Maeve's got to say about that. She's on the line now. Maeve, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, thank you very much indeed. First of all, Maeve, I have to say I've lived in cities most of my life, and you know what? I can't even think I even see homeless people sometimes. I simply step over them or walk past them when they're crouching against a wall and they've got their little paper cup there and they're hungry and cold, and I want to pretend they're not there. That's the general attitude of most of the population of this country, isn't it?
I think so. It's easier not to see people sometimes because if you see them, you feel bad. You feel like you need to do something. So it's easier sometimes to just keep walking.
Yes, I know. I absolutely agree with you. Now, tell me about your book, No Fixed Abode, Life and Death Among the UK's Forgotten Homeless. Now, the forgotten homeless presumably have a worse plight than the unforgotten homeless.
Yeah, so the title refers to the fact that homelessness goes beyond just people that we might see sleeping on the streets. There's many different forms of homelessness. There's people sofa surfing, people living in squats, people in long-term temporary accommodation, staying in bed and breakfasts for, months and years on end.
That's right.
So it's a much bigger problem than even the large problem that we see on our city streets.
Yes, it is definitely. And just as a throwaway comment here, any one of us could become homeless at any time. I know that. I know people who've fallen out of this profession I'm in now, and they've had a bust up with their marriage split up. All of a sudden, they find themselves in desperate trouble. Now, one of the stories that led you to start writing your book, and one that affected you very badly, a man called Tony who froze to death in December 2017 in the back garden of the home in Lowestoft from which he had been evicted. Bankrupt, a few months later, it was all over for him. I mean, how many of these tragic stories do you come across? And when are we going to start appreciating there are desperate people out there who need help?
Yeah, and so Tony, that was the very question that started me off on this. I read about Tony's story, the fact that he had lived for 30 years plus in that house and then died meters from the doorway.
Unbelievable.
And I had that question too, how many people is this happening to?
Yeah.
And I was really shocked to find out that we just didn't hold that data at that point.
Yes.
Everyone I went through and tried to find out from, coroner's offices, hospitals, police, council, all assumed somebody else was keeping track of that, and nobody was.
No.
So that's why I started this investigation.
Yeah, fantastic. What else have you found out that will shock us?
So, first of all, we got the scale of the issue. We counted 800 people that died while homeless across the UK in an 18-month period. That is probably a huge underestimate, but it's still horrifying.
Yes.
Many of those deaths were decades younger than the average the average age of death.
Yeah.
So people are dying really young. Yeah. They're dying from often treatable conditions. Mm-hmm. I was shocked by how much violence there was, how much self-harm there was included. And really it was, I learned a huge amount by sitting in inquests, going to funerals, talking to family members, talking to people. It was shocking to find out just how many strands of the safety net we assume is out there have been eroded.
I empathise with you there. As a young reporter on a weekly newspaper, I used to sit in those coroner's courts and I used to sit in those magistrates' courts, and, you know, the tragic stories that pass before my eyes. Do you agree with me that nobody realises how close they are to ruin and homelessness because of the way life can kick you in the teeth?
Yeah, and I think actually COVID-19, if it's taught us anything, has been just how fragile the reality that we surround ourselves with is. You know, suddenly, I think previously it was very easy to assume somebody's homeless because they've made a bad mistake. They've made a wrong choice in their life. It's their fault. I think what the past months has taught us is anyone can fall ill with a horrible disease. Anyone can lose their job unexpectedly out of the blue.
Definitely.
Anyone can suddenly have a bereavement that knocks them sideways and they just can't keep going. It suddenly is a bit more comprehensible.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Maeve, we've got to move on because a lot of people want to get on the show, but I want to thank you very much indeed for your contribution. I wish you the best of luck with your book for two reasons. I hope it's a success from your point of view. I hope it enlightens a lot of people and opens a few eyes in this country. Thank you very much indeed. OK, folks, let's get back to the lines, because when I ask you to give me a call, 0344 499 1000, and you do, the least I can do is try and get you to air to talk to me. Lots of you want to get onto the programme tonight. We'll get as many on as we can. Right, we've got Kim in Kent, wants to talk about asylum seekers. Kim, good evening to you.
Hello, Mike.
Hi.
You won't remember me. I was one of the copy takers on the Daily Express.
I used
to have you standing behind me, breathing down my neck, you know, when things are...
Really? Well, I'll just explain to everybody, that's because I was the news editor, and that's why I was standing behind. I wasn't breathing on your neck or anything like that. But I thought you were going to say that I was phoning in stories from all over the world, and you could never make any sense of them. Anyway, Kim, please, tell me about your views on asylum seekers.
Well, I live on the Channel Coast.
Right.
I live right next to Dungeness, where a lot of them have been entering.
Yeah.
And we find wet clothes, wet blankets on the beach. We know they're not all accounted for. The majority of them are not in the real sense of refugee. They're not refugees. They're just here, you know, for the money. They're here for the benefits.
Yes.
But my big question, and nobody is answering this, including my MP, is where do they get the money to cross the channel?
Well,
5 to 10 grand to get on a dinghy.
It's a very good question, and I've tried to explore this in the past myself, and apparently it's the family fortune. You know, it's given to them by their fathers and their mothers and their aunties and their uncles and the whole community where they've come from, just to give that one child a better life. That's what they say. But look, that aside, Kim, what do you think of my idea to either make them self-sufficient and build new towns in the north of England, or Priti Patel's voiced idea to take them to remote islands and see if we can start communities there?
Well, for a start, I think if we're going to start giving people opportunities to rebuild cities, I think we need to employ our own unemployed first.
Yep.
And then, and only then, when everyone's nicely ensconced, you know, and they're all happily employed rebuilding cities, then we can start looking at employing other people. But there are people here there are homeless people here that you've been talking about who need to be living in army barracks and accommodation and four-star hotels.
Totally agree with you. Kim, unfortunately, we've got to move on, but thank you very much indeed. Kim, one of a number of callers who are going to be on the show tonight. You're listening to Talk Radio. I'm Mike Parry. I want to hear from you in the next hour of the show. Stay with us till 7.
Talk Radio.
The new Google Pixel 4a 5G and Pixel 5 are first ever Google 5G phones, putting the G in 5G. You get it? Google G 5G. Anyway, these high-speed helpers will supercharge your day-to-day, plus a battery that lasts over 24 hours, giving you speed and power all day long. Pre-order now and get a pair of Bose QC35-2 noise-cancelling headphones, usually £259, absolutely free. Pull a switcheroo today. Find us online at carphonewarehouse.com or in your local Currys PC World store. Full T's and C's with exclusions and availability online.
The last 10 years have changed the world. Towie, Love Island, One Direction on the X Factor. Amazing! Discover the richest reality TV stars of the last decade with the fabulous Reality Rich List, counting down the 25 highest earning stars of Towie, Love Island, X Factor and more. Free inside the Sun on Sunday this weekend.
At Lidl, we don't just back British farming, we really back it. That's why 100% of our fresh milk, butter, eggs, cream, chicken, pork and beef comes from British suppliers. And Lidl have even committed to investing £15 billion into British food and farming over the next 5 years. Because we believe in little changes for the better.
The wait is finally over. Onward comes to Disney+.
We're going on a quest.
Now streaming.
Dad left us a spell to bring him back.
It's just legs!
And we messed it up.
Two brothers.
We only have 24 hours to bring the rest of him back.
One crazy adventure.
Put it in O for Onward!
Oh no.
What happened?
Looks like you shrunk me.
Disney and Pixar's Onward. Now streaming on Disney+. 18+ subscription required, T's and C's apply.
The Mercedes-Benz Vito has evolved. Leaner, keener, more intelligent, with advanced connectivity, safety and security. The Vito comes with free vehicle monitoring technology to keep you one step ahead, including GPS tracking, intelligent route planning and real-time status updates, making it the smartest mid-size van on the road today. The new Mercedes-Benz Vito, a game changer for small businesses. Intrigued? Search Mercedes-Benz Vito to discover more.
Don't miss up to 50% off selected lines at Burton. Autumn layering and new denim. Stay-at-home styles and everyday fashion updates. Now with up to 50% off selected lines at Burton. The Burton New Season event. Brand new styles for a brand new season. With up to 50% off selected lines for a limited time. In-store and online at burton.co.uk.
Excludes delivery and gift cards. Offer ends 5th of October.
Across the UK, online and on DAB. Talk Radio on the Hour Headlines.
From the Sky News Centre at 6, there are reports Donald Trump's vital signs over the past 24 hours were very concerning, but he's improved since being admitted to hospital with coronavirus. The Associated Press says their source knows about the president's condition. His medical team have since given an update saying they're extremely happy with his progress. Dr. Sean Dooley says Mr. Trump's being closely monitored after being given a cocktail of experimental drugs.
The president this morning is not on oxygen, not having difficulty breathing or walking around. He's in exceptionally good spirits, and in fact, as we were completing our multidisciplinary rounds this morning, quote he left us with was, "I feel like I could walk out of here today."
Detectives are investigating the murder of a doctor and a teenage girl near Burnley. The bodies of Dr. Sakavi and her 14-year-old Vian were found in a house which had been badly damaged by fire. The Foreign Secretary has told the virtual Conservative Party conference the UK will no longer be held over a barrel by Brussels. Dominic Raab has warned there will be no deal unless it's a fair deal. In sport, Everton have moved to the top of the Premier League with a 4-2 win over Brighton, which maintains their perfect start to the season. Leeds are in action against Manchester City. Joe Townsend's at Ellen Road.
It's Leeds 0, Man City 1. Raheem Sterling goal is the difference so far. A smart drilled finish after cutting in from the left. It's well deserved too, as up until that 17th minute breakthrough, City were absolutely dominant, but it seemed to have woken Leeds up as they're now well in the contest and could quite easily have equalised. But as we close in towards half-time, it's Leeds 0, Man City 1.
Newcastle play Burnley later. And the voices of Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis have been heard for the first time in a video recorded with Sir David Attenborough. Prince Louis and Sir David chatted about monkeys. That's the latest. I'm Elizabeth Secker.
Talk Radio. Talk Radio. Across the UK. Mike Porky Parry on Talk Radio.
OK, folks, thank you very much indeed for tuning in. You are listening, of course, to Talk Radio, broadcast to you from Talk Radio Towers on the edge of the River Thames, which ain't looking too sparkling at the moment. And in the backdrop to my studio here, I see the Tower of London, OK? Legendary fortress, of course, and historical monument of this country, where, if people didn't behave themselves sometimes in the past, they would end up. And they didn't have a great future after that, OK? Now, talking about the future, of course, the future of this country now depends very largely on how we get through the current crisis, the pandemic. It's smashed everybody to pieces. Both sides of the House of Commons, of course, have to cope with it, but man in charge is Boris Johnson, and Boris has got to cope with it. And today is the start of the Conservative Party conference, which you wouldn't know, like we didn't really know the Labour Party conference was going on last week, because, of course, it's all on screen, isn't it? And I don't know if any of you have ever been to a party conference, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, whatever. They were great fun, believe me. I mean, the shenanigans that go on there, I shan't talk about because this is a family show. But nevertheless, those sort of things hopefully one day will return. Not the bad behaviour, the fact that we have a party conference. Anyway, to look at all the issues which are going to face Mr Johnson and the current Tory government at their first party conference. Delighted to join me now, Amanda Milling, Tory MP for Cannock Chase and co-chairman of the Conservative Party. Amanda, thank you very much. I can call you Amanda. Amanda, thank you very much indeed for joining me this evening.
Mike, it's a pleasure to be with you on our first day of party conference. As you say, a little bit different from our normal conferences because it's a virtual conference, but it's the biggest conference ever with over 20,000 members joining us.
Wow, that's incredible. Is that because, of course, they can join from anywhere now around the country? They don't actually have to come down to wherever you might be, booking a hotel in Brighton or something like that. So there is an advantage then to the current setup, yeah?
So we would have been in Birmingham this year. Right. And you're right to say that actually by having it as a virtual conference, people can join us from the comfort of their living rooms. You talk about what conferences normally like. Yeah. There's kind of events with warm white wine and crowded rooms. This time,
that's true. Yes,
a glass of wine and from the comfort of their sofa.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, and keep their own wine chilled in their own fridge. Now, obviously, Amanda, we are in historic political times. And at the centre of it all is Boris Johnson. He's the new MP. If it wasn't a virtual conference, you know better than me that when he stood up to give his opening speech or the final speech at the conference, he would have been hailed as the hero who brought an 80-seat majority for the Tories to Parliament, introducing 40 new MPs. Applause after applause after applause. He won't get that because it's virtual conference. So how will that sap his confidence with all the problems which are stacking up that he's got to deal with?
This conference is a really good opportunity to reflect on that fantastic win that we had last December. Yep. I know that everyone's really looking forward to tuning into the Prime Minister's speech on Tuesday lunchtime. He will be closing conference, and I know that we'll be seeing lots of the Boris Johnson we love and know.
OK. Well, let me just outline some of the problems he's got to deal with. Home ownership, the economy, lockdown, Brexit, family life, and we'll talk about all those now, and then after that I want to talk to you about Boris Johnson's future. But let's start off with, for instance, the economy. I mean, it's smashed. It's nobody's fault, but it's smashed. How do we recover?
So we've had to undertake unprecedented measures in order to kind of get through the last 6 months since we were faced with the challenges of the coronavirus. Yep. But what we've seen is the government kind of really step in and implement measures which have helped support people's jobs and livelihoods. Mm-hmm.
OK. What about lockdown? Because, Boris came to us as the man who lifted spirits, who made us all feel good about ourselves, and we're all going to get up and go for it, and lots of energy into, keeping this great country going. And now he's the architect of lockdown and more lockdown. I hear today that even my hometown, Chester, might have to go into some sort of lockdown. This is not the libertarian spirit we expected.
We've had to take these measures in order to protect lives. This is a really, really ghastly virus. We know that from the fact that the Prime Minister was hit with it earlier in the year. But these measures are taken to protect each other. We've all got a role to play in terms of stopping the spread of the virus, in terms of following the rules, those local restrictions, and following those local restrictions too, where we're really trying to stop the virus spreading anymore. Mm-hmm. Also, if you do get the virus or you've got the symptoms, making sure you self-isolate. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Has there been any reflection on how we started to handle this? There were allegations at the start that Dominic Cummings put forward a plan much the same as the one Sweden undertook, that we'd actually just shrug it off, really, just get on with life and see what happens. The result of that would be that some people would die, and probably those people would have been older people. That was never confirmed by Mr. Cummings or anybody else, but Sweden did go ahead and do that. Have we ever reflected on whether or not we could have taken another course?
Throughout the pandemic, we've been following the scientific and medical
but
advice.
Is that good enough? I mean, do you mind me asking, honestly, Amanda, is that good enough? Because surely the job of the Prime Minister is not just to follow the signs, it is to follow the signs and to weigh that up against the economy, to weigh that up against the health of the nation for people who need treatment for other things other than COVID, to weigh up our relations with the rest of the world in terms of transport, getting people in and out of the country. I mean, should it just have been based on religiously following the science?
It was really important that we did follow the science, because ultimately, as a government, we have a duty to protect people's lives. And if you think back to February, March, and the scenes that we saw in France and Spain, that was a backdrop to the situation we found ourselves in. But throughout this, we've had to evolve our response, depending on the spread of the virus. And we said in the summer, we released some of the measures, but released lockdown. But then we always said, if necessary, we would put the brakes on. And as we've seen an increase in the number of cases, it's been important to reintroduce some rules. For instance, the rules of 6, remembering hands, face and space, and following them, and also self-isolation if you've got the symptoms or tested positive.
Okay, so am I being selfish when I say, look, I think what we should do now is protect the vulnerable, self-isolate those who are most at risk, ask those who feel worried to shield for themselves, and let the rest of the country get on with it. For instance, I don't see any great opportunity in the 10 o'clock closure of pubs and restaurants. I just don't.
I think the key thing is it's incumbent on all of us to take and play our part in terms of following the rules and making sure that we stop the spread of this really, really nasty virus.
Yeah, but 0.1% of the population is affected, not killed, but affected by it. They suspected to having tests. 0.1% of the population. Has it been worth closing down the economy to the extent that we have for such a small number of people?
As we've seen, the number of cases have been increasing again.
Not by much, not in the same rate as they were in March when there was 100,000 a day. It's less than 10,000 now, and it's not living up to the latest scientific predictions of 50,000 a day.
The spread of the disease is increasing, and it's most important that we all play our part, because ultimately we want to protect people's health and also people's lives.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. I just wonder whether if we've looked at one solution a bit too hard without considering others. But look, I'll take your point of view on that, Amanda. Thank you. Amanda, what about Brexit? That's the next great serious issue which is looming, and bang, is going to smack us in the face very soon. Encouraging noises over the last 48 hours that we could now be moving towards a deal, as both sides are starting to lower their expectations and give in to some concessions. Does that worry you? Are we going to end up with a watered down exit plan from Europe?
We're committed to ending the transition period on the 31st of December. Has been made, but there's still some big gaps to be bridged. And the Prime Minister and the EU the European Commission President have spoken today, and have asked their chief negotiators to work intensively, because everyone wants to get an agreement, but we do need to make sure that that's an agreement that enables us to be a sovereign country.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be a sovereign country. That's what we voted Brexit for. We want to see that through. Now, home ownership is a big issue, and one that Mr Johnson has spoken about only this week, and one he's clearly concerned about, getting people started and all that. Do you accept that we're going to have to breach quite big areas of the green belt in order to be able to provide houses in this country for people who need them? I should remind people your constituency is Cannock Chase, a beautiful part of the world on the edge of the Black Country. Are we going to have to take over green fields?
We need to build more houses, but absolutely need to protect the countryside. As you say, my seat is actually named after the forest and this AOMB. It's so important we protect beautiful parts of our countryside, but we do need to be building homes.
And where are we going to build them if you don't build them on what are currently now green fields? We're not going to build them on brownfield sites, are we? That's never worked.
Well, I take my own seat, and I talk about the beautiful forest, but there is plenty of space, brownfield sites, where we could, in fact, be building homes. And over the last few years, I have seen us doing that. In fact, in a power station site which closed a few years ago, we're building 2,300 homes.
Wow, that's very impressive. One thing that's happened today, Amanda, is I've been keeping tabs on a potential announcement or a plan. I'm not sure if it's actually in place yet, to open a new Tory HQ in Leeds. Now, are we talking about shifting Conservative HQ from metropolitan London to Leeds, or are we talking here about, once again, trying to fulfil some of the promises of levelling the country up and a reward to those red wall voters in the north of England?
So I was delighted to announce earlier on today that we'll be opening a headquarters in Leeds. And this is
definitely will, yeah.
Headquarters, because it's really important that it is a headquarters, not just an office. We will be moving some of our operations and staff from across our different departments to the Leeds office. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be announcing that today. Not least because I used to work in Leeds.
Yeah.
I worked in Leeds 15 years. So I'm delighted that I'll be going to work up in that office as well.
Well, that's fantastic. I like Leeds a lot. I've worked up there quite a lot. A great city. You see, we have great northern cities. We have Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds. And one great thing about the northern cities, as I'm sure you'll know, Amanda, is they all have wonderful town halls. For some unknown reason, we didn't build any town halls in southern cities. We built them all in the north, but that's a very, very good thing. Now, can I come on to Mr Johnson himself, the Prime Minister, please? Is he fully fit? Has he recovered, in your view? Because I know you work closely with him, from his attack of COVID-19. And it's very, very relevant because, as we speak, of course, the President of the United States of America is going through the same nasty ordeal.
Yeah, and I think I'd take the point about the President Trump. It's good that his health and he's making some progress, and we do send his best wishes, because it is a really ghastly disease. And this also demonstrates that anybody can catch it. In terms of Prime Minister, he's fully fit. I've seen him several times over the last week, and he's very much the Boris that we love and know.
OK, well, he's got to demonstrate that to the public, hasn't he? And, I don't think he has been sufficiently communicative, because one of the Prime Minister's great strengths is his ability to communicate. And, by gum, we need a lot of communication at the moment. I read a line from a political pundit this week which said Boris Johnson wanted to be Prime Minister but doesn't want to be Prime Minister. And the point being made by the political pundit was that the idea of the adventure of becoming Prime Minister and getting to Downing Street, lifting the nation, was great. Now that he's there, he's not terribly sure he wants to stay.
Prime Minister is a great Prime Minister. He's loving the job. He's getting on with the job. He's getting around the country to meet with the electorate. And I'm really looking forward to his speech on Tuesday as he closes conference, as he sets out the vision for the country. OK, well, that's great. And we're all looking forward to, a typical Boris speech. Rishi Sunak has turned out to be a brilliant Chancellor, a great communicator in his own way, and a great asset to the Tory party in these difficult times. Is there an economic argument on one side of the Prime Minister, and following the science, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, on the other? Is Mr Johnson being torn in the middle? And, when chief scientist officers are threatening to resign if they don't get their way, and the Chancellor is saying, look, I would find it very difficult to go as far as this, we've got a bit of a dilemma there, haven't we? They're working as one team. We're all working together to be able to balance tackling this pandemic at the same time as protecting jobs and livelihoods. OK, fine. Listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us, Amanda. I'm going to let you go in 1 second. Can you give me a prediction about how rapidly the economy can recover? I'm not going to provide predictions. All I would say is we're doing everything we can as a government to, as I said, tackle the virus, but also protect and put our arms round the economy. OK, lovely. Well, Amanda, thank you very much indeed. Amanda Milling, Tory MP for Cannock Chase, beautiful part of the world, and co-chairman of the Conservative Party, and the woman who could be leading the charge north. The Let's Level Up Britain and Red Wall Reward and all that kind of stuff, by manning and staffing a Tory HQ in Leeds,
which was announced today. OK, let's get back to the lines, folks, because when I ask you to call me and you call me, then I need to be able to give you some time on air to tell me what you want to talk about, OK? The number, of course, is 0344 499 1000. Right, we've got Patrick in Essex on the line. Hi, Patrick.
How are you doing? You all right, Mike?
Very well indeed. Thank you for calling. What would you like to tell me? You want to tell me something about the student life, yeah?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, if they gave every single child in this country of secondary school age a computer loaded with a national curriculum, now a cheap Android computer, they could have consulted someone like Alan Sugar or Richard Branson and got Carol Warden and Clive Sinclair involved, made a cheap computer with all the curriculum on it, loaded to a website that they can just go on. It's only for educational purposes.
Yeah.
You could study to degree level on this thing. You could do anything on it because you don't need a tutor, and everything would have been exam-based. They wouldn't have any of the problems that they have with this COVID-19 at the moment with the kids going back to school. And that is, in my mind, what has caused the second outbreak of COVID-19.
OK, but Patrick, are you then talking about students indefinitely working in isolation, really, not enjoying the university experience?
No, I mean, I'm talking about secondary school kids going back to school. And I think also a lot of people take it that go to university are going for an education and they buy into this partying thing. If they want to go out and party and stuff, they can do that. They don't need to go to university to do it and get into mountains of debt.
Yeah.
It's as you were saying earlier, it is a racket. My partner went to university and it was the biggest mistake she ever made.
Really? Why was that? Why was that?
Because she ended up in a pile of debt at the end of it with a degree that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know,
yeah, I totally agree. OK, well, thank you very much indeed. That's Patrick. And Patrick's advocating much more freedom of movement among students by making them independently their own scholastic unit, if you see what I mean. Give them a laptop, get Lord Sugar to organise it, billionaire businessman, organises things very well, and let children go on from there. It's a good idea. OK, folks, you're listening to Talk Radio. I'm Mike Parry, and I'll be back with you very shortly.
Talk Radio.
Want free groceries for a whole year? And £1,000 cash? Then you've got to be in it to Sunwin it. It's easy to win. To enter, text Sunwin to 63320 or post your name and number to Comp 10, PO Box 4445, Colchester, CO2 8GD. Head to thesun.co.uk/win for more information. SMS entry cost £2 plus one standard network rate message. Ends 1 p.m. October 5. Postal entries free and ends October 6. 18 plus UK residents only, excluding NI. For full T's and C's, visit thesun.co.uk/win.
Indeed knows that for any business, your next step is the most important one, such as hiring someone who can make an impact. Indeed helps you find high-impact hires fast without any long-term commitments, so you only pay for what you need thanks to our flexible payment options. Take that next step with Indeed. Get started with a £100 credit for your first job post and get seen by more quality candidates. Go to Indeed.com/100. That's Indeed.com/100. Terms and conditions apply.
It's great to be out on the road again. Makes you appreciate life's little treats and just how easy it is to get them with BP Me Rewards. A new outfit from M&S, presents for the kids from Love to Shop. I can even spend my points on fuel or donate my rewards to good causes. Get the app or pick up a card at your BP checkout. Oh, which reminds me, my car needs petrol.
BP Me Rewards. Little rewards, more often. Download BP Me Rewards in the App Store to find out more. Visit bpmerewards.co.uk for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
UK employers. The way you hire from the EU is changing from the 1st of January 2021. To hire anyone new from outside the UK, you'll need to register as a licensed sponsor. Getting a licence normally takes 8 weeks and fees apply. New employees from outside the UK will also need to meet language, job and salary requirements. Find out everything you need to know about the UK's points-based immigration system at gov.uk/hiring from the EU.
At Lidl, we don't just back British farming, we really back it. That's why 100% of our fresh milk, butter, eggs, cream, chicken, pork and beef comes from British suppliers. And Lidl have even committed to investing £15 billion into British food and farming over the next 5 years. Because we believe in little changes for the better.
Talk Radio.
traffic and travel.
In Derry, the A2 in Coleraine stays closed along Milburn Road. That's both ways between Union Street and Artillery Road after a vehicle struck a bridge. On the M6 in Staffordshire, there are 5-mile queues heading northbound from junction 15 at Stoke-on-Trent up to 16 for Crewe. That's after an accident. In Northamptonshire, there are delays on the M1 southbound from junction 15 at Northampton towards the Newport Pagnell services, also after an accident. And in Hertfordshire and Watford, the A411 stays closed along Waterfields Way. That's both ways around the B&Q. That's because of the flooding. I'm Johnny Ratner.
McDonald's is now on Just Eat. That's right, McDonald's is now on Just Eat. Let's get ready for McDonald's, now on Just Eat. Wait, McDonald's is now on Just Eat. Ah, nice one. Maybe we can ditch all the sound effects. Have a Big Mac or some McNuggets and get McDonald's on the Just Eat app today.
Did somebody say Just Eat?
Served from 11 a.m. McDelivery now available in over 650 selected stores and Just Eat. Check out the Just Eat website for details. Delivery fee applies.
Like Porky Parry on Talk Radio.
Okay, folks, you are listening to Talk Radio. I'm Mike Parry. You probably guessed that from listening to this theme music. Now, you probably think I've jumped into this particular part of the show to try and talk about Everton. And I'm not talking about Everton, actually. That is Everton's theme music. But the reason I've played that is because I'm sad to have to tell you that one of the original actors from Z-Cars, which started in 1963, has sadly died at the age of 92. His name is Frank Windsor, best known for his role in the 1960s police TV drama Z-Cars, has died at 92. Frank played Detective Sergeant John Watt in the BBC series. He later had roles in Casualty and Peak Practice, but most famously known for that. He played DS Watt in Z-Cars, set in Merseyside, started in 1962, went on till 1965, and the spin-off Softly, Task Force. And it's just incredible that that series, which gave Everton their theme music, has been brought back to life, so to speak, by the very sad news of the death of one of its classic actors. People often say to me, why is Everton's theme tune Z-Cars? And you know what? It all started because an Everton player went to Prestatyn to ceremonially kick a ball off in the centre circle of a charity football match. And when asked by the guy who was on the PA system, what music shall I play for you? He said, oh, I don't know. And this was about 1964. He said, what's that new TV series based in Liverpool, Z-Cars? Play that. Played that, and it's stuck ever since. Anyway, look, I just thought I'd let you know about that, folks, because we've got to get on with the show. Loads of very important issues to talk about, and one of them is what's happening to our pubs, what's happening to our service sector, what's happening to our restaurants. Why are we shutting them down at 10 o'clock? Is it having any effect? I'm very much for the freedom of hospitality that pubs and restaurants and all other areas of the service area, I should say, bring us, particularly in these dark times. Delighted to say I can introduce onto the show now Kate Nichols, who is the Chief Executive Officer of UK Hospitality. Kate, thanks very much indeed for joining me. Can you please tell me your response to a line I've read today which says, pub and restaurants in coronavirus hotspots face closure under a 3-tier local lockdown system due to start next week. Merseyside is likely to be the first area to be placed in the top tier of restrictions.
Well, it's absolutely devastating. The sector is on its knees through coronavirus. We had 4 months, best part of 4 months, where we weren't able to trade.
Yeah.
We were only just getting back up to being on an even keel. And these latest closure restrictions at a local level and national level have really rocked the sector, and its ability to survive is now called into question.
Yeah.
So we know 1 in 5 premises are still closed and are now unlikely to reopen. And nearly 1 million people in the sector are still protected protected. Their job's still protected by furlough, which comes to an end at the end of this month. And that leaves them with a very uncertain future as government support is wound down, just as these restrictions are tightened up.
Yeah, that's a horrifying statistic you've just given us. 20% of pubs in this country may never reopen. Is that what you think?
Yes.
My God.
Because
Yeah.
since the 4th of July, they've been able to trade. If they haven't been able to reopen yet, it's either because they're closed by legislation, so they're a late night venue, nightclub,
yes,
or that they just don't have the footfall or haven't had the cash flow to be able to support themselves in getting back reopen.
Yeah.
If they haven't got open yet, then we really fear that these local restrictions and national restrictions will be the final nail in the coffin for many of them, and we will lose our vital community pubs and neighbourhood restaurants for good unless we get further support from the government.
That's absolutely shocking. Now, one of the heroes of your sector, in my view, is Mr. Tim Martin, who runs Wetherspoons, okay? Because I've long patronised Wetherspoons pubs. I think Mr. Martin brought the pub, to a whole new level of availability for people in the community. And he's said, when he's spoken, that actually pubs are probably the safest place for people to be because they're regulated. And I've used about half a dozen pubs, Kate, since lockdown was lifted. I would have used an awful lot more if the world was still free. But in each of them, I felt very safe. I was shown to a table, given way to service, screens up on the bar. I feel much safer there than I do when I see people at 10 o'clock at night being pitched out of the pubs and then stripping the shelves of their local Tesco Express of all cans of booze and bottles of wine and then partying in the street.
Well, I think that that's the big irony that we faced as a result of this situation, that an arbitrary cut-off time and no time for gradual dispersal is actually exposing people potentially to greater levels of risk.
Yes.
Our pubs, bars and restaurants worked really hard during May and June to put in place the most stringent measures. They are world-beating protocols for making sure that our customers and our team members are safe. We regulate, we enforce social distancing, hygiene, sanitation. The leader of Birmingham City Council and the Mayor of Greater Manchester, a fellow Everton supporter, both said that actually if you're going to socialise, they are the safest places to socialise. So we need to make sure that these venues that have worked flat out to give people a safe place to socialise are protected, supported, and then they can reopen successfully and be part of the recovery when we come out the other side of these COVID restrictions in 4 to 5 months' time.
Yeah, but I want them to be able to open until 11 or midnight now like they used to, because again, I think it's safer than herding people out on the streets. Let me just read this to you, Kate. Sorry, before you respond there. Scientific advisors have long counselled that a hospitality shutdown is likely to be effective, although, this is the crucial point, it is understood that there has been no specific modelling of the latest plan, and Professor Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer for England, has not been closely involved. So I think, Kate, there's a lot of guesswork going on here because people want to feel good about themselves.
Well, that is part of our concern about these measures. We need to make sure that we've got really good evidence to underpin any of the interventions in COVID, particularly ones that have such a significant economic and social impact. We're talking about millions of people potentially losing their jobs, the mental health impact, the poverty and deprivation if we go into a recession and losing your job in hospitality. And hospitality is the third largest employer in the UK with a huge supply chain. So the economic effects of this, there won't just be ripples. This will be a tsunami going across communities across the UK if hospitality venues close and those job losses that I talked about earlier come to pass. What we would suggest is that when we've got the evidence to justify those interventions, we use that, we make them as targeted as possible, and we take into account the social economic impact, and we involve the trade in those discussions, because we in the trade have worked really hard over the last 15 years since the law changed to make sure we've got policies of staggered closing times, gradual dispersal, so we make sure that people are kept safe, we don't have problems on our streets, and all we're asking for is the ability to trade in ways that are responsible, but to help manage this process. And we would urge the government at the earliest opportunity to lift those curfews, or at the very least to explore the measures in Northern Ireland and Wales, where we've at least got half an hour for gradual dispersal.
Exactly, or 20 minutes or something like that. Yeah, OK, Kate, thanks very much indeed. Just before you go, hospitality to me means going to one of the great sporting events, Kate, you know what I mean? You know, the Epsom Derby, the Grand National, Formula One motor racing, the cricket, and a football match. And that's the hospitality I wish to see restored to its glory as soon as possible. OK, that was Kate from UK Hospitality, Kate Nichols, and she's outlining what I'm thinking, and I hope millions of you are as well. Do you want your pubs back open till 11 o'clock, till 12 o'clock? If you do, you should give me a call and tell me. 0344 499 1000. You are listening to Talk Radio.
Across the UK, Early Breakfast with James Max on Talk Radio.
Join me every weekday morning from 5 a.m. I'll bring you all the big news stories of the day. And I also want to hear what you have to say. So join me bright and early, live from 5.
Early Breakfast with James Max. Weekday mornings from 5 on Talk Radio. The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
I'm Howard Hughes. Join me this Sunday night from 10 for a trip into the outer limits.
The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. Sunday night from 10 on Talk Radio.
Like Porky Parry
on Talk Radio.
OK, folks, you're listening to Talk Radio, broadcasting to you from Talk Radio Towers on the banks of the River Thames in London, England, of course. This is a worldwide service, folks. People have been contacting us from all around the globe. And going all around the globe now, we are as well. Several US media are now reporting that President Trump was given oxygen at the White House before he left for hospital. The New York Times quotes 2 people as saying that Trump had trouble breathing on Friday and his oxygen level dropped. I don't think that's been officially confirmed by anybody inside the Trump camp, but leading doctors said to have given him supplemental oxygen. OK, a man who knows all about this and everything else you need to know about politics in the United States is John Boutillier, former Republican member of the United States House of Representatives from New York. And I'm delighted to say that John is on the line with me now. John, a very good evening, and thank you for joining me here on Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, Mike. My pleasure to be on with you. I mean, what a couple days this has been.
Just completely unbelievable. First question, John, and this will link to the extent of the president's illness. Has Donald Trump completely lost all political credibility because of the way he completely dismissed COVID as, a real threat, because he went around shaking hands when he shouldn't, didn't wear masks, told everybody, it was something that was invented in China. I mean, how can people now take him seriously on any big issue?
Well, on this particular issue, he's got his lowest ratings of any issue.
Right.
His credibility on COVID-related matters, 22%.
Right.
5% don't trust him.
Yeah.
And that is going to hurt him. I mean, even today, while he's obviously in the hospital,
yeah,
an hour and a half ago, the White House physician came out, painted a rosy picture of how well Trump is and how well he's doing.
Yeah.
And then he said to the doctor this morning, I want to walk out of here right now. I'm feeling so well. That's what he said publicly. Within 15 minutes, a White House source told the pool reporters there at Walter Reed that the president, his vital signs in the last 24 hours were very alarming.
Yes.
And that the next 48 hours were critical for his recovery. So that those two don't go together. Either he's doing great or he's in some trouble. They're not the same.
I think the president has actually just tweeted something out to clarify his position. I can't actually put my hand at the moment. Let me see. It's here somewhere, and I'll get onto it in a minute. But anyway, John, listen, what I was going to say is thank you very much indeed for joining me. You know the ins and outs of American politics like nobody else. Does it make the forthcoming debate between the vice president and the potential Veep the most important in history? Because, of course, we could be looking at a man there who may have to take over the presidency. And, of course, I'm talking about Mike Pence.
And a woman who might be the first woman president. Kamala.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Go on. Sorry.
It does make it. It makes it heightened interest in something that normally people don't care about. The vice president.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Yeah,
and they're
okay.
ahead with it as of today. They're going to have it for some odd reason out in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yes.
When others are saying, wait a sec, let's get rid of all this traveling and these groups of people. Bring it where they both live in Washington, D.C., put it in a TV studio, no audience, and just do it. And they may change on Monday. We don't know.
No, we don't know. It may be they're having in Salt Lake City because they don't sell alcohol there, and people can't be driven to it by the despair that, of course, this has caused across the nation. John, just let me read this tweet from the President. The President has just tweeted out about his condition. Doctors, nurses and all at the great Walter Reed Medical Centre and others from likewise incredible institutions who have joined them are amazing, says the President in capital letters, amazing. That's the tweet on Mr. Trump's page. Tremendous progress has been made over the last 6 months in fighting this plague. With their help, I am feeling well. So that's the latest from the press. Now, what is the position, John, sort of constitutionally, about what could happen to the election in less than 1 month's time if the president isn't sufficiently healthy to A, campaign, or B, even stand up and, present himself to the people as I want a renewal of my office?
Well, first of all, if it's that scenario where he's alive, but not feeling too well and can't really go out and campaign, well, that's just too bad. That's how it's going to be. And the election's happening anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yes, definitely. It's already started, hasn't it? Lots of people have already voted.
2 million people have already voted, and more are voting every day.
Yeah. And of course, Mr. Trump's name is on the ballot paper, so they can't unvote, can they?
That is correct. So I was reading about this today to find out exactly how this thing works, because every state has its own rules about what happens in the middle of an election when the ballots have been printed, the voting machines have been arranged.
Yep.
And then a candidate who's on that ballot dies.
Yes.
And each state has a different way of dealing with it.
Right.
Some go ahead and keep voting with the dead guy's name on there.
Yeah.
Some stop everything and quickly redo the machines and the ballots with the new guy.
Yeah.
There is no uniform way of doing it.
No, there's not. And of course, your system in America is different to ours. In this country, we vote for local MPs who then collect together and form a government. But of course, in America, you're voting for Trump, but then it's the number of electoral college nominations he's got. So would there be any need to change his name anyway?
It could, depending on how the state wants to allocate those electors, whether they say the electors that were originally pledged to Donald Trump.
Yep.
Now have to vote, required to vote for Mike Pence.
Yes, exactly.
And the state's going to make its own decision. And that's the good and the bad of our system. It's different, as you said.
Yeah.
Ours is potentially a mess.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge mess, but it's a mess really of nature's making rather than anybody else. Is Mike Pence a suitable candidate to be the leader of the Western world?
You know what? More than Trump.
Yeah, you think so?
More than Trump. I mean, he is a government person. He was a congressman. Obviously, he was the governor of Indiana. If you watched him early on, maybe you did, running the coronavirus task force when they have press conferences.
Yep.
He's a norm. I mean, I don't like a lot of his religious stuff, but on government things and how to run a government, he would be competent.
Right. Okay.
Whereas Trump is, Trump doesn't get enough credit for how incompetent he is because we spent so much time on how crazy and corrupt he is. He's also completely incompetent.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. But my reflection on the first presidential debate, which worldwide has been branded as a complete fiasco, and wouldn't it have been better if the president had actually been a bit smarter and just said, "Okay, Joe, tell us what your agenda is," because it is a very left-wing agenda. And if Mr. Trump had if the president had let Joe Biden, maybe rattle out a few policies that he's having to adhere to keep all of his electorate happy, wouldn't that have done Donald Trump a lot more good than just the shouting match that ensued?
Well, not yet. Yes, and apparently in the rehearsals that were done last weekend, in the White House. They practiced Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and the day of, Tuesday, before flying to Cleveland for the debate.
Yep.
And by the way, Chris Christie was sort of involved in running the debate preparation.
Sure.
He tested positive. He's the former governor of New Jersey.
Yes.
So that virus was in that room while they prepared. But they did give Trump some lines to say and then stand back and let Biden answer them, knowing that the answer would hurt Biden.
Yes.
But Trump was so undisciplined. He couldn't do it. He couldn't see it happen.
No, I we have an expression in this country: given enough rope to hang himself, and that's what I thought might have happened. Anyway, coming up very shortly is the second presidential debate, October the 15th. That's not going to happen, is it?
Well, no announcements have been made, but no one believes they're going to have those debates. No. Trump's not going to be ready for the debates.
Yeah.
By the way, there is polling out in the New York Times today that. And there's also in other stories, Republican political operatives saying that in the 2 nights after the Tuesday debate, so it'd be Wednesday night and Thursday night, polling showed a collapse of support for Trump and for Republican Senate candidates. That the debate was such a disaster for Trump that it has completely ruined the Republican Party. Then came the hospitalization, so we're on to that for a while. But everything says it's going to be a wipeout.
Well, I mean, blimey, that's the first time I've heard that said, actually, because no matter who you talk to, they all say, Trump might be down in the ratings, but he was down in the ratings against Hillary. Don't worry, he'll rally. His support is so solid. His core support is so solid. Nobody will desert him. But, John, thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight. A terrific insight there into what's going on in America, folks. You only get that from experts. And John Boutillier, a former Republican member of the United States House of Representatives, he's from New York, has given us that fantastic insight and that outline. OK, folks, I'm with you up to the top of the hour. You're listening to Talk Radio. Be back with you very shortly.
Online, on DAB, and on the Talk Radio app. Talk Radio.
Martin here runs his own building business. He's got a tool for everything. Nail gun for nails, screwdriver for screws, and QuickBooks for finances. QuickBooks makes doing his tax return easy, automatically checking for the most common errors. Martin hardly has to lift a finger. Well, maybe one.
Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. Intuit QuickBooks.
The Burton New Season event with up to 50% off selected lines. In-store and at burton.co.uk.
Terms and conditions apply. Offer ends 5th of October.
The triple cheeseburger is now available from the McDonald's Saver menu. Wait, the triple cheeseburger? Is that right? The triple cheeseburger is now available from the McDonald's Saver menu, and for just $2.19. Seriously? From 11 a.m, price and participation may vary.
The last 10 years have changed the world. Towie, Love Island, One Direction on the X Factor. Amazing! Discover the richest reality TV stars of the last decade with the fabulous Reality Rich List, counting down the 25 highest earning stars of Towie, Love Island, X Factor, and more. Free inside the Sun on Sunday this weekend.
These days, everybody seems to be baking, so you give it a go. How hard can it be? Bit of kneading, bit of proving, and you bake a masterpiece. Now that feels like winning. So roll with it and turn today into Wednesday with a scratch card. Make today Wednesday with a scratch card from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Search Dream Big, Play Small. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Hello Tesco shoppers. Please only use your club card power to lower prices. Zapping £1.99 kettle chips to 90p and £1.60 Jaffa cakes to 90p is fine. But teleporting customers in front of you to the back of the queue is very, very naughty. Thank you.
Get exclusive deals at Tesco with your club card or app. The power to lower prices. Available in the majority of larger stores, excludes Express. Ends 20th of October. Club card or app required. Delivery charges may apply.
Talk Radio. traffic and travel.
The M6 in Staffordshire is down to a single lane northbound from junction 15 near Stoke-on-Trent up to 16 for Crewe, where a motorhome has overturned. It's only the inside lane that's open past the scene, so do expect delays. On the M1 in Northamptonshire, a breakdown is blocking the inside lane southbound from junction 15 to 14 going from Northampton towards Milton Keynes, causing queues. And in Hertfordshire, the A411 in Watford stays closed along Waterfields Way in both directions near the B&Q because of the flooding causing delays through Watford. I'm Johnny Ratner.
The people at Brook and Wild have asked me to record this commercial while luxuriating on one of their supremely comfortable mattresses. So, oh my word. These layers of luxury so lovingly put together in either soft, medium or firm. And right now, you can get 30% off any Brook and Wild mattress. Just use code SLEEP30 at brookandwild.com. Offer ends soon.
Like Porky Parry on Talk Radio.
Okay, folks, you are listening to Talk Radio. I'm Mike Parry, broadcasting to you from Talk Radio Towers. Thank you very much, all of you, for having been with me this afternoon. We've had an invigorating, energetic and exercising show, and I want to thank everybody who's been in contact. I'm sorry we couldn't get more of you to air to talk to us on the phone. Sorry we couldn't read all the messages you've sent us, but thank you for them anyway. It gives us a huge indication of how you're enjoying, or otherwise, the show. Fortunately, most of you are enjoying it. Okay, folks, coming to a subject now close to my heart. I read a report this week which horrified me. Reports of increasing threats of people being trampled to death by cows. Obviously, most of that happens in the country because that's where cows are. People cross fields, they see a herd of cows. Cows are, generally speaking, very docile. Occasionally things can happen involving cows with their calves, or something might spook the cow. But apparently there is an increase now in the number of people who are suffering, if not death, then serious injuries, and it's something we've got to have a look at. I've got a personal interest here, folks. Sometimes down in Stockbroke, Surrey, I can walk across a golf course to the other side, and then I go over a stile, and I walk down a field full of cows, and beyond the field, of course, is a beautiful English hostelry where I like to arrive safely and then leave safely later on. Obviously, later on, I may not have my wits about me as much as I did earlier on, but I don't want to become a victim of cows. So I'm going to talk to a guy who's going to tell us all about this, and the fact that actually you don't have a huge chance of being trampled to death by a cow in this country. And the man I'm going to talk to is Stuart Roberts, Deputy President of the National Farming Union. Stuart, thanks very much indeed for joining me this evening.
It's a pleasure, Mike.
OK, now why am I reading a report that more and more people are suffering injury at the hands or the feet of cows, I should say, and sadly, some people are being trampled under to death?
That they are, Mike. We've had 3 incidents of fatalities in a very short period of time. Over the last few weeks, but it is still a incredibly low risk. I think we are seeing more people in the countryside at the moment. I think as a response actually to COVID and lockdown, and so long as people act responsibly, then it is an exceptionally low risk. But you know, cows are large animals. They can weigh up to 3/4 of a ton, and like any animal, they can be unpredictable. But it's about minimising the risks, and as I say, very, very low risk. When you think there's nearly 3 billion visits to the countryside, most of those for walking, and we've got 140,000 odd miles of footpaths in the country.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all that. What spooks a cow then? What should human? You know, you're an expert here, so the millions of people listening to this broadcast, what should humans not do when they're in the company of cows?
Okay, there's a few very simple ones. The first one, you touched about cows and calves, Mike, earlier when you were talking. Do not get between cows and calves. It's like any mother and child. They may well feel threatened. So please don't walk between cows and calves. The other one...
I mean, can you actually see that? I'm sorry to interrupt there, mate, but sorry, Stuart. Can you actually can you actually, I've walked across fields many times, and I'm never conscious of saying, right, there's the cow, there's the calf. How do you know which cow is the mother of the calf?
Well, the reality is, if they are quite close together, it's pretty obvious generally which is. If they're far apart, then there isn't such an issue. You haven't got to match them in a 50-acre field. But the most important points to remember, Mike, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about this, is actually most incidents happen, not all, but most incidents happen when a dog is involved.
Right.
And there's two key lessons we've all got to have when we go in the countryside. Yeah. Keep your dog on a short lead and keep it under control. And if the dog starts to be chased by cows, if the dog is disturbing the cattle, let go of the lead. It's really important to let go of the lead. The dog will run away, the cows will chase the dog, and generally dogs are quicker than cows, and they will run away from you. But please keep it on the lead. And if it feels threatened, then let go of that lead.
No, I think that's very sensible advice, because if you hold on to the dog, you then become the target because you're the keeper of the dog. If you let the dog go, as you quite rightly say, I've never seen a cow reach 35 miles an hour chasing an Alsatian, or a Spaniard.
That's absolutely a Spaniard, even, but
a Spaniard,
yes, Spaniel possibly.
There won't be too many Spaniards in my part of the world running across fields away from cows.
Well, look, one of the things for me, we've seen a massive increase in people coming through the farm, people using footpaths. We saw just over 2,000 people walk through my farm in Hertfordshire one bank holiday earlier in May. I still see lots and lots of people not keeping their dogs on leads when they're around animals. It is really, really important that people do that. The other one, and there's a number of other lessons in this, try and stay calm. Don't run. If you run, you become something that gets chased. Right. So walk steadily, walk calmly, walk swiftly to the nearest exit. And if you can walk around groups of animals, even if the footpath is running through the middle of the animals, walk round them. But there's one further point, Mike, which is slightly frustrating one, actually. For a number of years now, we've been arguing with government and lobbying government to allow us to put temporary diversions in place where there may be animals, for example. And actually, some of the walking organisations have been very anti this. This would reduce risk. It would be a really helpful thing to do. And we're really asking, government, again, particularly in light of these rare, but we have seen 3 fatalities recently, that ability to temporarily allow diversions. You can still enjoy the countryside. You can still see where your food comes from. You can still walk to that hostelry, Mike, but we can all make sure we do so in a responsible and safe way.
Indeed, we definitely can. Well, Stu, thanks very much indeed. That's vital lessons there to all you. We all love the countryside, and there are so many competing factors in countryside. Dogs don't just worry cows, they sometimes worry horses, and ramblers leave gates open, all that kind of stuff. We've all got to be very considerate to each other because we all love the countryside, we all want to use it, but we've got to remember so do other people. Right, okay folks, that's all from me for this evening, but I'm delighted to say that I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Harriet, who is on the other end of this line from her private studio. And Harriet, good evening to you. I hope you're well. And could you tell us, please, how you're going to entertain your massive audience this evening?
Good evening to you too. Well, this evening we are kicking off Black History Month with the great and the good of British black entertainment industry. We've got David Olusoga OBE talking about his new book, which is bringing every piece of black history from the Roman Empire all the way through to today into one book. Chizzy Akadula will be here with her new TV show, and for a bit of difference, we're also talking about the demise of the Essex girl, Sarah Parry, who is herself an Essex girl. We'll be talking about why all the stereotypes about them are not true, and how
the demise
she is
of the Essex girl. I don't think I can handle this one.
I know. Sadly, the stereotype of them as kind of white heel-wearing bimbos is on the way out. They
Yes.
are businesswomen changing the world.
Well,
apparently.
I mean, to be honest, I've never rated. I'm sorry, I've never regarded girls from Essex as bimbos or anything like that. To me, they've always been highly intelligent individuals, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I can't tell you about any personal experiences with Essex girls in particular, but that sounds like a great show. Thank you very much indeed. That's Harriet Minter coming up next here on Talk Radio. Okay, folks, so as I say, thank you very much indeed for being with me. I've got a special message for you all out there, and that is that you don't get rid of me on a Saturday night anymore here on Talk Radio, and I am going to be back with you tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, from 1 till 4. Can you think of a better way to spend a Sunday afternoon than me imparting more wisdom and knowledge, seeking more truth and justice for you on a Sunday afternoon? It's going to happen tomorrow.
Talk Radio.
By playing the National Lottery, you raise £30 million every week for good causes. £30 million. That can build 1 million bee hotels to help the environment. Actually, shouldn't they be called B&Bs instead? Every week, you raise £30 million for good causes. The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Players must be 16 or over.
At Wix, Dulux Standard 2.5 litre coloured emulsion is now £12. Perfect for turning your home from shabby to chic. Cure your house embarrassment with Wix.
This is the sound of an assault course completer, archery acer, and high rope hero. And this is someone who did it by collecting 9 codes inside the sun for 2 free tickets to the Bear Grylls adventure, worth up to £80. Sounds good, right? Pick up the sun today. T's and C's apply.
Tesco Mobile brings you the incredible iPhone SE with portrait mode for studio quality portraits and cinematic 4K video for just $22.99 a month. And when you join Tesco Mobile, you'll also get up to £40 a month off your Tesco shopping in store. Because we're the only network to give you Clubcard Plus for 6 months. See us in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 1st of November. 36-month credit and rolling monthly airtime agreements with Tesco Mobile. Clubcard Plus. Eligibility and conditions apply. Renews at £7.99 a month unless cancelled. £40 saving based on 10% off 2 in-store shops at £200 max spend monthly.
Oh, did I replied all. No spelling mistakes, though.
Give yourself a Diet Coke break.
The new Google Pixel 4a 5G and Pixel 5, our first ever Google 5G phones, putting the G in 5G.